Hello, my name is Gene Monterastelli, and I am the editor of TappingQA.com. And the video that you are about to watch is an interview that I did as part of the 24 Hours of Tapping. The 24 Hours of Tapping was a free event, which was a fundraiser for the Peaceful Heart Network. The Peaceful Heart Network provides training and trauma relief tools to those in war-torn countries, as well as working with refugees all over the world. They've been able to help out over 200,000 people all over the world. After you watch this video, if you find this video something that was useful, the very easy way that you can say thank you to the guest for giving their time and sharing their expertise is to go to 24hoursoftapping.com/support and make a small contribution to support the Peaceful Heart Network. Again, that is 24hoursoftapping.com/support, and I hope you enjoy this conversation. Our next guest on the virtual stage is my friend Jondi Whitis. Jondi loves energy work and her beloved EFT to host the tapping adaptation that reflects years of practice and hands-on training, mentoring, and client work. She calls herself the people's teacher in honor of her commitment to making energy work accessible to all. I know this to be true. I've seen it firsthand. Jondi's body of work includes training for groups and individuals seeking to use energy tools for healing, recovery from trauma, and personal transformation. She's a particular place in her professional life for humanitarian organizations working with veterans, indigenous peoples, and teachers. She's the perfect fit for what we're doing right here. And as a side note, anytime someone reaches out to me and asks the question, I want to get an EFT certification. Do you do EFT certifications? Do you do trainings? I say no. The person you need to call is my friend Jondi Whitis. I think she is one of the best clinicians in the world when it comes to this stuff. And I get to have a conversation with her right now. Please welcome to my virtual stage, Jondi Whitis.
Thank you. That was so kind.
And it was all true, which is the best part about it.
Thanks.
Well, how are you doing this morning?
It's a pleasure to be here. I can't believe you're doing this, but yes, I do. It's completely Gene, and it's a great honor to be here. Thank you.
Excellent. So one of the things that I have been doing in conversations with folks over the course of the last 19 and a half hours now is all of the topics that we've been covering are the topics that people have presented saying, this is the thing that I want to chat on. And so I've been asking people, what is their origin story for the topic? So not what's your origin story for tapping, but this idea of, and maybe it'll be a good idea for you to like maybe define what you mean by emotional first aid as we tap into this. And why is this something that, because I know you've spent a lot of time and attention in creating resources and training folks in this particular way. So how do you define emotional first aid, and why is this something that you're just like so jazzed about?
Well, thank you. What I've noticed in all the times I've checked in is everyone is talking about some version of this. So we know we're on the right track, right?
Yeah.
This is validation. So emotional first aid is simply an area. It's not a brand.
Mm-hmm.
But if I needed to go around saying this all the time, you need to call it something. So what I noticed started probably about the time that I was the lead trainer for Newtown Sandy Hook and their community trauma recovery project. So once you sit in a group of people long enough that are traumatized, seeking to help other people who are traumatized, you start to pick up a few things. And all of us are really talking about that, from the pacing of go slow to the carefulness of observing what's right in front of you. This is Gary Craig's Meet Them Where They Are in a nutshell. And so that careful observation and what we all know about mind-body tools kind of combined. And I went, oh, these people don't need me to talk to this. These people need me to talk body up. So these are really somatic tools to help them ground, rebalance, and become available to talking with any other protocol that you got going. So the basic idea is, we know tapping handles simultaneously the mind and the body and this thing we call emotions, but we've got to start with the body. So that's where I probably started doubling down on this. Mm-hmm. Then I noticed that all of us who are practitioners or trainers, we're dealing with people who will go offline. right? They will get triggered. They will noticeably go somewhere else. So if you're watching carefully, you go, oh, I need to help them become embodied again.
Yep.
Right? So that's what I'm talking about with that. So the main points are basically learning that before you can do that thing you're really good at, you probably need to get them back in their body. And so I felt like that was the kindest thing I could do to a planet that was becoming chronically uncertain.
Yeah.
Just from my little corner of the world. So all these people that you're talking to, most of them being my friends, I love supporting this message and sending it out. And not to be self-promoting, but Deborah Miller and I wrote this book actually in response to all the shootings that we have in this country. Right. And the natural disasters as well as man-made disasters. That's where we started thinking this is a perfect fit for a moment in time. And then pandemic hit. So we think that we're on the right trail here, helping people understand there's various phases of what happens to everyone.
Yeah.
It is just before you have your spidey sense. Something's not right.
Yeah.
Right? And then just as a moment starts to unfold, you have your as you're taking it in, and your body begins a whole new level of chemical adaptations for this threat response. And then when you're in the moment, right? And then after that, and that's where our other friends, like the Humanitarian Committee over at ACEP that I belong to, that first initial recovery, then slightly into it recovery a little bit later, and then the long-term recovery from these things. But the most important thing I want to talk to you about today is if you can help people quickly, they won't encode that as a traumatic experience.
I love that. Yeah. Talk to me more about that.
Right. So we have a window, and it depends on who you talk to. I don't really care. The idea is a few minutes to a few days. Let's just say as soon as you can.
Right.
Help them with body-based techniques to regulate, stabilize, and release that threat response cycle. Therein, you're doing them the favor of not encoding that as something stored or kept. And that's what we want.
And we talked about this somewhere in the last 17 hours, somewhere along the way. I can remember reading a study where they had when they had bombings in the London tube system, one of the ways that you could tell if someone was traumatized or not was whether or not they got a text message out and it came back. In a number of the communities in the Middle East where there are car bombings and stuff like that, the moment it happens, they flood the hotel, they flood the hospital room with friends and neighbors, and the guy that runs the coffee shop and your newspaper person and all that sort of stuff. Where what we're doing is, because it's extreme, unexpected, and isolating, and it sounds kind of what you're talking about is like we unexpected and extreme, we can't necessarily do something about that because they already happened. But the isolating bit, there is that window where at some point I can get in and go, okay, you're not alone. Like, just like, I'm right here next to you. We're managing this in this way. And that's the thing that you're talking about here, that like we're able to, because it's not isolating, we don't have those three components. Therefore, it's not turning into this long-term trauma inside of us as we navigate.
Absolutely. So, you know, the words that they teach us are UDIN. So unexpected, dramatic, isolating, and the N is for no strategy, no solution, no power, no agency, right? And so what you're suggesting is the most human thing that all of us need. You've talked several times about Maslow, of course, safety first, right? I have to feel safe or I can't attend to anything you're trying to do for me.
Right.
Just can't. And so the way to do that is feel body safe, get back in my body. And so what we're talking about here is connect. And also what we're offering to people is, if you learn an area of EFA, it doesn't have to be mine. I call it rapid regulation and release, just because I got to call it something. But I don't care who you go to. The idea is learn that the first person you might have to connect with is yourself. It's not ideal. Not ideal. I want you. But if I can't have you, then I need to be able to connect with myself. Okay. All right. Okay. I've got it. Right? This way, we come back online even if we're by ourselves, if we've learned these. And
Right.
that's what we're passing on, right?
Yeah, and I love this idea you're talking about learning. One of my favorite things to teach my clients is fire drills,
Yes.
where we practice things going wrong and we practice getting around them. And my grade school caught on fire when I was in 4th or 5th grade, and it was a tiny fire in a little bitty kitchen that was off a gymnasium. Like, it wasn't a big deal, but there was real smoke. And because we'd done fire drills, we were a bunch of little kids that were excited to see real fire trucks. Like it was an exciting thing for us because we had practiced when things went wrong, the steps we needed to do to feel like we were in control and be safe. That idea that in not having no plan, actually having a plan to be able to do that thing, which made it so much easier for us to do that.
Yes.
And for us to recognize the fact, and it's teased out itself multiple ways over the course of the day, where we continue to recognize the difference between regulating myself in the moment and dealing with some sort of deep trauma to create this healing and what is going on. And when we are new to tapping, I don't know if you heard when you got online in time, but Andy talking about going after the biggest thing right away because, oh my gosh, it's so awesome. We can go after these really big things. We can clear this stuff really, really fast. Just because we can doesn't mean we should. Like, if we're going to have long-term health inside of this stuff, and I love the fact that we're continuing to normalize inside of the community. The first thing that we're trying to do is just regulate the nervous system. Full stop. Like that's it. Not find an initial sensitizing event, not understand the trauma, not understand how old I was when it happened. It's just like, and you said putting them back in your body. It reminds me of my friend, the medical intuitive Catherine Poole, and she used to she saw all sorts of whack, like just an amazing amount of information that I didn't have access to. And she talked about she worked at a therapeutic writing center, and she talked about kids with Downs getting back into their body when they're on the back of the horse, and kids with ADHD, like literally just putting your hand on the top of their head. And it was almost like you were closing the jack in the box and you were putting them back into their body. And after there was a little discomfort, like you could literally just see them settle in where you're physically putting you back in the body. You're talking about something very, very similar, but we're doing it through a different approach in a different way, and not just kind of like physically manhandling someone and putting them back into their body, which probably isn't appropriate in most settings.
Right. Well, a simple way to hand this to people is say this: words get in the way.
Yes.
Right. So our first sensations, then followed probably by image or symbol of some type. Then long after that, developing the words for that. It's a process.
Yep.
And so we want the simplest, earliest process. And so that would be a sensation or a body type function, like the nervous system. And we can't access that if we've, as Dan Siegel says, if we've flipped our lid.
Yeah.
Right? There's nothing there. So to put ourselves back together again means we have access to those resources. So words get in the way. So what you want to do is, there's a whole area of this too called verbal first aid. But what do I mean? I mean, just like EFT Master, the first one, Ann Adams said, too much, too fast.
Yeah.
That's it, right? And this is a way to remind ourselves to shut it. Just look at what's in front of you. If you have this intention and you've trained yourself even a little to just be there, safe connection, see what you see, and coherent energy will help entrain incoherent energy.
Yeah.
So you have to be that person if you're going to do that kind of rapid intervention. Because really what emotional first aid is strategies and interventions to quickly get you back into an embodied state.
And all of those things are antithetical to EFT tapping evangelists and zealots. Like when I lived in Baltimore, I was part of a crisis response team for the Archdiocese of Baltimore, and basically we were trained to go in and do the first 24 hours of serious crises because the entire system was in crises. And so we were doing crisis response. We weren't doing trauma response. It was just that moment. And we were in a K through 8 school on a Monday morning in which a teacher had committed suicide over the weekend. And so we had been in the classrooms and we'd done the work that we needed to do. And we identified the kids that needed the long-term care and that sort of stuff. And so the team is just kind of kicking around in the hallway till everybody's done, till we can get out of there. And the vice principal comes up to us and he's like, kindergarten teacher needs to talk to someone. Does somebody got a minute? I'm like, yep, got it. Let's go. And so we wander down there and we're literally standing in the doorway as the little kids are going to come streaming in from recess. And I'm like, so what's going on? She's like, 2 things. One is, I was the only person in the building that she actually got along with, and I feel bad. 2 is, she has a 7th grade daughter that she left behind and pissed off. I said, great. This is what I want you to do. Just do this. Take a nice big deep breath. Just do this. Take a nice big deep breath. Just do this. Take a nice big deep breath. I said a couple of reframes that were very, very simple inside of that. She went, gave me a hug, and then ran to the classroom. And it wasn't like, I would like to teach you a technique. And this is what is going on. And this is the meridian system. And this is what it is. And there was none of that. And I don't even know if you can call what I did tapping. It was an intervention in the moment to put someone back in their body. And like, you know, for those of us who are natural teachers and natural evangelists, that runs counter to everything that we want to do in that particular moment. And so for all of us who want to share this stuff, there's a difference between being helpful and sharing information. And sometimes sharing information is being helpful, and sometimes sharing information is the last thing that we want to be doing, and it's completely unuseful. And so I love what you're getting at here. And again, for most of us helpers who are on the line like this, that is antithetical to the way that we want to show up. And so I love the fact that you're calling it out as going, okay, what is my role in this setting? I'm now going to choose the tools that make the most sense as I step into that.
Absolutely. They used to tease me about that in Newtown, because I was always saying, for this moment, for this person, for this purpose, what is mine to do?
Yeah.
And so it helps to get really clear about yourself, because first you're going to have to show up grounded first, coherent energy, right? With a really firm intention of what is helpful and what is helpful coming out of you, because it's different from the other person. Yep. Right. And then what you did so beautifully with that teacher is, in fact, a version of verbal first aid. Short directive offer. Monkey see, monkey do would be a Jondi phrase for saying that. Hey, can I show you? Just do. Yeah. Right. It's very short little sentences. And just like the fire drill, wonderful thing that you mentioned there, we have school drills all the time, but there's no good pre-frame on them. Right. Right. Not typically. And so the student is just constantly looking for, oh my gosh, that's going to happen to us.
That's right.
Right. You just seeded that thought. So the idea is, I'm going to teach you really great stuff to take care of yourself, no matter what life does. Okay. Yeah. It is a cheerful, positive kind of thing that we're trying to show them instead. And then you apply that verbal first aid. So I'm going to tell you helpful things to do. So I've automatically stopped talking like the fast New Yorker I was for 40 years. Right. I've just gone, grab your coat, grab their hand. Yep. Line up. Follow me. I mean, boom, 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 because that's all they can attend to. Because as that threat response starts to come back from sort of the dorsal state, right? From that, it starts shutting all this down. So we need to get in there to do that strategy, that intervention. And everything that you're talking about is just perfect for that. And it doesn't have to be scary for people to learn, because it's coming from you. So it's not going to be Jondi speak or Jean speak. It's going to be you speak. Yep.
Yeah. I mean, one of the things that I'm always really, really clear about when I'm teaching is, okay, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to descriptively describe how I approach this. And I'm going to descriptively describe why I do it. This is not prescriptive. Awesome. Now that you understand my disposition, let's find a disposition and a vocabulary and a thing that is right for you in this particular setting. And some cases, when someone is really, really new, having a recipe that is well written that they can follow step by step, and having phrases like it's not like we're saying, hey, here are some phrases. Now go make up your own. It's like, here are some suggestion phrases. This is the reason why it's useful to do it in this way. Now it needs to sound like you. And maybe it's the same type of vocabulary, and maybe it's very, very different vocabulary, but it needs to sound, I mean, there is a difference between the way someone helps you with a flat tire in New York City and the way they help you with a flat tire in Casper, Wyoming. Right. And in both cases, you have someone coming to your aid to do something physical. And those two interactions could not look more differently, because in both of those settings, it sounds like the person who is saying the thing and is showing up the way that they show up. And I also think that like, hopefully hearing that becomes liberating to someone, because then it's not like, I need to learn a new way to be. Instead, it's, I already know how to be. I already have the desire to show up as a helper. What are the small things I need to understand in order to do that effectively? Now that I understand how to do that effectively, I'm now going to do my version of that as I step into it.
Absolutely. And again, make it simple with them. Tell them, here's my intention. Here's what I want to say. Yeah. Now, how would you say it? That's all you do. Yeah. That's all you got to do. How would you say that?
And that's an invitation. And the fun thing is if you are ever trying to figure out how to say something, say it, and your mouth will tell on you. Like if I say, boy, that's really fleek, my mouth goes, doughy middle-aged man, shut up, never say that word ever again. Because that word fleek does not belong in this mouth. And so, like, your mouth will tell on you. Like when you write something, read it out loud. Does it sound like your mouth? And so just giving yourself permission to like say the words, and then you're going to find the words that feel comfortable inside of your mouth.
I like it. I really like it a lot. That's great.
So what are some of those words that you use that we can find our words for in those particular settings?
Well, again, the first thing is it's an offer.
Yes.
It's just simply an offer that you are making. But I think it's fair to say that all the ventral vagal stuff that we naturally have when we are embodied is our face, our eyes, I want to say our proximity, right? Our timing, the prosody of our voice, the quality of our voice. Yeah. And so all of those are present in the offer, and they are much more important than what you say.
Yep.
All of us know this, but it's intuitively, not cognitively.
And as you say that, in a moment like this, where I'm showing up as an emotional first aid helper, the first thing that I make sure is that I am at eye level with the person I'm talking to. Whatever that is, if I'm squatting down on the ground or sitting in a chair or standing on my tippy toes, but the first thing that I'm like, you're saying that is just engaging in a way that the offer makes a lot of sense. The other thing that I really like about you using the word offer is, for a whole litany of reasons, the idea of consent has been at the front of mind for the last, going on 6 years for some reason. I wonder why that's the case. But just like recognizing how valuable that is in lots of situations. Like my preference is that's an invitation for consent. In this particular case, it's like I have this, and this is the way I always phrase it, is I have this really weird thing that looks silly that might make you feel better in the moment. Would you like to try that?
Absolutely. And so what I think I've done, Gina, I think I've taken your concept and I've collapsed it even further, because I'm always looking for the little bit. And I say something like this: I might be able to help.
Yeah.
Right. This is what I do.
Yeah.
See if that works for you too.
Yep.
Boom, boom, boom. Right.
Yeah.
It's an invitation, and they will take it or they won't. And if they won't, that's a big question. They all ask me, what if they won't? And I say, you do it for them, with them. And they may or may not be pulled by that coherent energy. But we're also talking about, just like you said, when I get down to your level, it's meeting you where you are, right?
Yeah.
And are my eyes soft?
Yeah.
Is my voice sort of low, and I want to say low and slow?
Yeah. Yeah. And our buddy Rick Wilkes uses the phrase vibrational leadership.
Oh,
Like
nice.
it's another way of like coherence is absolutely right. And it's that's a $27 word. And when we were chatting last year and he said, yeah, I just want to be a vibrational leader. I'm like, yes, that's
Beautiful.
exactly what it is. Because, when you are flopping around in the water, you're looking for land or you're looking for a life raft. And when you are, and this is a silly tangential example, but if you have if I am one of 100 adults in a room and you bring 3 6-year-olds and a 7-year-old into that room, within 4 minutes, they're going to be at my feet because they know who's going to play. They
That's
know
right.
who the sucker is. But what they're doing is they're recognizing the vibrational place that they feel safe in these giant people who are probably going to ignore them. And their little radar goes, boom,
Boom.
he's the one. He's going to be in this particular case. And so, what if they say no? Yes. But they're also going to stand next to the person who is in the circumstance where they're going, this is the emotionally safe place. Like this is the person who has 2 feet planted firmly on the ground. And even if I'm not going to listen to them, I'm going to go stand next to them because that apparently is the firm ground to be standing on.
Absolutely. And they're responding to the feel. In other words, Rick Wills, yes, they're responding to the vibration, but the vibration is giving them a sensation, and the sensation is telling their nervous system, this is okay. This guy's okay. And we do the same thing, frankly, with animals, right? I often say to people, I mean, a lot of people know that I am working with my parents right now who have dementia and stuff. So there's sometimes not a lot of understanding there. You have to go to another place. And much like, this is not meant to be insulting, but vibrationally correct, much like dogs and horses, they are so attuned to the energy that's what you're feeding them, because the words aren't useful again.
Yeah. Well, the thing I always joke about the fact is everywhere I go in the world, animals, small children, and drunks are always going to come talk to me because they know who's going to play and they know the space that is safe. Like they just, for whatever reason, they're just like, yep, this is the place that I can go. And the thing that like is so important in what we're saying here is you do your work first. Like, and it's not just about doing your work first in a moment of trauma where you're going to reach out, but it's doing your work here first, so that when you go out in the world, it is easier for you to create that coherent emotional experience, to show up as the vibrational leader that allows people to connect in that particular way as we're navigating all of this.
Absolutely. And it's all the time. And I don't mean it's like slogging through all the time. I mean, it's a lifestyle practice. And to your points earlier, I still have about 50 pearl erasers that I give to people in training when I was in the live training, because I thought it was such a great idea. Every time I see it, I go, have you? Are you?
Yep.
Right, William? And when we were doing the book thing, the whole idea was it all starts with you. It is like that, airplane comment that we've heard, but it always, all the time, starts with you, always. And then from there, you can help another. And from there, you can teach them to help another still. That's the whole pay it forward idea.
Yeah. And the other thing is that, like, if you're doing this, you can show up in the world as a helper in that particular way. Oh yeah, by the way, the quality of your mental health and your life is better too. Like it's not just I'm doing this work so I can show up in the world and do this sort of thing.
Right.
But you're absolutely right. It's a lifestyle choice. And it's not like, packing my first aid kit every single time I walk out the door, but instead, because I'm thoughtful, I'm deliberate, I am clear, I'm taking care of myself in this way, I now have the opportunity to be a helper. It's like it doesn't make me a helper, but it is a prerequisite of me being able to be an effective helper. Then we have to do the things that you're talking about here. We need to be able to show up in a thoughtful, deliberate, concise way that is helpful as we're engaging with someone. But the prerequisite is I have to be able to do that sort of stuff.
Mm-hmm. And it doesn't have to be work. This is a common misunderstanding of why do we have to do these hours of mentoring and whatever. Of course, that first question kind of blows my mind, but I'm used to it now.
Yeah.
And I just go, because we all need help sometimes, because life happens to us too, because we have to be not only understanding the protocols that we're going to be delivering, but we have to deliver it from a place that is ready, willing, and able.
So as we navigate all of this, we've talked about the way that we show up energetically, the way that we are a helper. What's the next thing that we need to think about or know, or strategy or tactic, so that we are more grounded, effective folks as emotional first aid as we're navigating the world?
Well, I think we need to take a page out of the older psychologists and psychiatrists that have come before us that all somehow landed on this. You need several protocols.
Yeah.
You need a bag that has several things in it, because there is no one thing for everybody. There just isn't, including beloved tapping. There isn't. But what we're talking about here is learning different tapping adaptations. I have named them conveniently to be memorable, because if you can't remember them, you can't use them. So what's the point, right? But I do know that they all come from somewhere, and there's nothing new under the sun. I do know this. So the next thing I want to say is find several, get them embodied so that you can just stand and deliver. And then I like to say, make them flow. Because instead of bonk, 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 bonk delivery system, it's like Band-Aids. No, we want you somatically flow with that, depending on what we see. So how long we do it and the ones we choose depend a lot on what we see. So learn several. But in this particular case, I usually teach now this emotional first aid course called Rapid Regulation and Release. I teach so many with a checklist that says, saw it, can do it, like it. Right? So that they can have a little cheat sheet to go back and say, okay, these are mine. These are mine, and I'm going to offer them to people. But they are all adaptations. So once we have I think this is the way it goes, Jean. Once we have the intention set to be of help, we learn these things. And then in the moment we go, yes, this is my purpose right now. This is what I'm going to do. So it's very clear. We're observing very carefully, because the first step is always keep them safe. That means bend down, soften up, do whatever it is that will help you observe, keeping them on that safe vibrational level. The next thing, we're going to make the offer.
Okay, before we do that, I want to stick a pin in one of those things. Keep them safe. What that is, and it's important that we hear this, that is about them and it is not about us. That is about them and it's not about our tools. And oftentimes it's like, I have come here to give you this particular gift, is so unuseful in that particular way. It's the old David Reese line, help is only help when it's offered in the way that it is asked. And so being observant and showing up in that particular way is not showing up with an agenda, other than my agenda is to keep you safe. Therefore, I need you to cue me on that. I'm not showing up with the way I want to do it. So I love that idea, and I wanted to expand that before we stepped into the next little piece of it.
Well, I appreciate it, because I'm going to resurrect that old transactional analysis model, which used to talk about how you show up to the other person and which model you're choosing. Are you going down like this, like the teacher, the parent? Nah, in this case, we're looking to do this. I am a peer, right? I'm a human to human. So that's absolutely where we want to go. And that will keep them safe as you are an observant, trained human, watching their human and adjusting yourself. That's how it's about you. But you're always trying to keep them safe. Like you said, good pen catch there. And then the next stage is you're going to decide based on what you see and make your best guess. That's all. Just your best guess at what kind of intervention is going to land with them. And if it doesn't, choose another one. Just immediately. And when you're able to flow several, that's when you're able to observe where they're having trouble, or where, you're seeing the and you go, oh, okay, that one is working for them. So you can double down on that one as you observe, which is a different way of saying, you know, in EFT, we'd be testing,
Yep.
you know, measuring with benchmarks. We don't really have that in EFA. It's mostly like, what do I notice? And now what do I notice?
Yeah.
And now what do I notice?
And as you talk about this idea of flow, I think about what I did when I was learning how to be a stage hypnotist. What I did was, in my living room, I set up 9 chairs, and I was living with a family. And so I went into Rana's room and I got permission, and I borrowed 9 stuffed animals. And so I had these 9 little stuffed animals. And what I would do out loud, words actually coming out of my mouth, as I did these stage hypnosis shows. But what I also did was I had a stack of note cards and all of the possible things that could go wrong. There is a heckler, someone comes out of trance, someone actually regresses back to when they were 5, not like pretend like you were 5. And I mix them up, and then I set a timer, and I would be doing a stage show and the timer would go off and I had to draw a card, and that was now the thing I had to deal with, so that I was used to, in flow, bumping into something that didn't work. But for me, like, and in this case, like, you're not going to be doing cards and that sort of thing. But the thing I found really valuable was not doing this inside of my head, doing it in my body, standing up, the words actually coming out of my mouth, because it's so much easier to be in flow instead of thinking, oh, this is what I'm going to say. Because the number of times like, oh, this is what I'm going to say, and you walk out like, oh my gosh, I just made such a jerk of myself. How did I not say it that way? Where for me, when it's important something for me to say, I'm going to actually put the words in my mouth and do that. And so, and maybe we are practicing with someone who's pretending to be in distress, and, you know, we're just role playing this sort of thing. Or I'm just role playing it where I'm making up what is going on. I'm playing pretend like I did when I was 6. But when I was 6 years old and I was playing pretend and the jungle gym became a pirate ship, I was still saying all the piratey things out loud. I wasn't thinking them in my head. Like it was vivified because the words were actually coming out of my mouth. And to be in a circumstance with this sort of stuff, if we are going to be able to do this sort of stuff in flow, that doesn't happen just because I know what to say. It happens because I practiced it coming out of my mouth.
Absolutely. There's your fire drill. There's your fire drill again.
Right? Yeah.
And so that's what preparedness is all about. In this case, it's just that we're really coming at it from the body first. And so I'm going to say again, going back to that sort of ventral vagal idea, that we already have the equipment to socialize that first response with them. So I catch your eye. Right. We make contact, but it's not a forensic level eagle stare. It is a soft eye. It is a head tilt. It is a little bit of concern. It is a softening. There's something happening there, but now we're deliberate. We're aware of it. We're pushing what we already have as our innate equipment. Right?
Yeah. And the other thing I think that is I think people should feel empowered by inside of this is, yes, we need to have a plan. Yes, we need to be well-formed. Yes, we need to think about it. And yes, we just need to trust ourselves to be a human who can show up and be a helper. And we don't have to be perfect when we're being a helper in that particular setting. We can certainly do things that can compound things and make them worse. And that's what good formation allows us to do. But again, it's not, it goes back to that old thing that we hear less and less of, but it's like, what are the tapping phrases I tap on for insert issue? Like, you know, if I had a nickel for every single time that question has come into my inbox at Tapping Q&A, we would not be raising money right now for the Peaceful Heart Network, because they'd have more money than they would know what to do with, because that is something that's going on. And stepping away from that idea of what's the right way to do it. Like what you're saying is, understanding the human condition, having a number of tactics, showing up as a human, meeting them where they are. And if you misstep, it's okay, because you're there being a helper. And that's that's the first thing that you can do that's going to make a difference in that particular setting, is you're there with them and they're no longer alone. To go back to where we started, we're eliminating that sense of isolation, because I can be standing next to someone and be completely isolated. But if you're meeting me eye to eye and you're saying, hey, are you okay? Is there something I can offer you right now? It's just like you can just watch them dropping back into their body, as you said.
Absolutely. I mean, so first of all, show up. Second of all, be safe. Be perfectly safe. The only thing you need to be perfect about is being a perfectly safe human being to them. And so that goes back sort of even further than we're talking about, Gene. That goes back to Hippocratic Oath, right? First, do
Yep.
no harm.
Yep.
Right? Show up perfectly safe, do no harm. And then you can loosen up. The rest of it is going to be fine. It may not be what you wanted. They
That's
may
right.
not take you up on it, but you were there.
And that's the I think the biggest thing is I have to show up without expectation in how I'm going to be received as a helper.
With that agenda.
Yeah, letting go of that agenda, because, like, regardless of the number of tools that I haven't lived inside of your body for the number of decades you've been there. And so you have experienced living as you, and you know what works for you. You might not access it regularly, but you know what that particular thing is. And I am showing up of service to that, not to fix that.
I love that. I'm showing up in service to that.
Yeah.
That's who I am, what I am. And in that moment, I want to say the innate stuff we're really pushing forward consciously, our innate tools of face and showing up in energy. And the next thing is perhaps I already start doing the intervention on myself as I show up. I might be going, oh, wow, that looks like it hurts. I'm here.
Yeah.
I'll stay with you.
And one of the things you just said there, that hurts, like, it is amazing the healing power of normalizing someone else's distressing experience, because there's a part of us that doesn't want to be in distress. And so even when we are super, super unregulated, there's still a part of us that's trying to go, brave face, sparkle, smiley thing, like, and be in that particular case, and being able to just go to someone and go, oh my gosh, isn't this a little bit scary? Oh my gosh, aren't you over? Like normalizing the fact that they're having that experience, again, is another way of meeting them where they are, so they are not alone, by just saying, I see you in that thing. That's where you are right now. I'm right here next to you.
And here's a perfect example of exactly what you're saying. I was in a supermarket parking lot, and one of those cars went by that has designed their exhaust pipe to sound like bullets.
Yep.
I don't know why we do this, but we did this. And I could see the person right next to me startle and freeze.
Yep.
And I was right next to them. So it was no biggie for me to get just slightly in their visual. So I was not surprising.
Right.
And I went, wow. So I'm automatically doing a thymus thump while I acknowledged and normalized the situation as an arresting, scary one.
Yeah.
And she looked at me and said, what was that? And I went, I don't know.
Yeah.
Wow. I just need a moment.
Yeah.
Sometimes I just breathe. I mean, it was that flowy, right?
Yep.
But then we can deliberately do better flow. And I know we're running out of time. So I just want to normalize a few things for people about what am I talking about in this instance for that flow. And in that instance, I was already doing this. And then I just have to take a breath. I pre-framed what I wanted to do. And I went, oh. And she started in training with me. Again, that vibrational thing there. At which point then I went, I don't know why they do that.
Yeah.
Right? The obvious question that you can see is on their mind. And from there, Daniel Benor, bless him, is this. And out of your peripheral vision, your optic nerve is helping you. And from there, I just went, oh, and started doing Haven arms really slow.
Yeah.
With a long exhale and straw lips. Whew, I'm surprised. At which point then I went, oh, sometimes. And do you see, we didn't talk about it, but we did talk about it.
That's right.
We were sharing an experience. I was connecting with them in that moment. And I waited until I could see her get back in her body.
Yeah.
Right? And then I said something innocuous and I went, wow, I'm glad you were here with me, indicating she wasn't alone. Right? At which point, farewell, intervention done.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Jondi, this is always awesome stuff. I always love having these conversations with you, that you are thoughtful, deliberate, succinct, and human. And that's the best part of it as we navigate it all.
I love you so much. I can't even speak. Thank you for doing this for Peaceful Heart, for Gunilla and Ulf, for all the people in the world this will affect. And God bless you.
Well, part of this is your fault, because I wouldn't know either of them if it wasn't for you. And you brought those two people into my life. And so the fact that I've been sitting at this computer now for 20 hours is partially your responsibility in all of this.
I accept. Love
Awesome.
you. Be well.
Thank you, my dear. I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
Okay.